Hello, everybody. We're just letting everybody in now, so welcome. All right. As we are getting going this morning and as people are coming in, I would love to hear in the chat, where y'all coming from? You coming from Colorado? You coming from your kitchen? Where are you coming from today? All right, home office. I love it. Texas. Woohoo! Castle Rock. Hello, everybody. Welcome on in. Welcome to the Jumpstart 2021 webinar. I am excited to have you guys here, and I'm excited for us to share this time together. More people come in. Albert, I love it. Good. Okay. So just a couple housekeeping things before we get going. I am Tammy Gustafson with Live Free Counseling. I'm so happy to share this time with you. And Marie Frederickson, and if she can pull up, she's my executive assistant and my right-hand woman in this. And so she will be answering any questions you might have in the chat. Welcome to everybody who is also watching the replay. I'm glad you were able to come and make it. So let's get rolling. We are here. I don't know about you, but it is time for a little bit of a regroup. It is time for a regroup from 2020 and a jumpstart to 2021. So when I think about a jumpstart, my mind goes back to when I was 16 years old and I was living in Minnesota, and I was working at Chili's Bar and Grill. And I lived in rural Minnesota, and so I had about a 45-minute drive to Chili's, and I would work there. And this particular day, this particular month of January was 20 below. The entire month, it was 20 below. And Marie, I think you might be up on the screen, so you might have to mute. So anyways, we were 20, can you guys hear, put it in the chat, can you guys see me, or is Marie popping up right now? Okay, oh, good, okay, awesome, just wanted to make sure. So this particular day, it was 20 below zero. I got done with my shift as a waitress at Chili's at about midnight. And I started driving home, and as I'm driving home along this road kind of in the middle of nowhere, I feel the familiar like bump in the road, and then a bump, bump, bump. And it was my tire blowing, okay? So I pulled over. I was about 16 years old, and thankfully I had a very wise dad who insisted that learning to drive and learning how to change a tire were one and the same. So I thought, okay, this is great. I pulled my car over. I got everything out. I bundled up because it was freezing cold and it was in the middle of the night. I bundled up, I got out, and I managed to change this tire. I'm feeling very proud of myself. I had the lights on and the heat on in the car because it was freezing. I jump in there, I get out. So I get done changing the tire, and I put everything away. I close my trunk. I get back in my car to finish driving home in 20 below weather in the middle of nowhere, and my battery is dead. And so after all that work, after everything that I managed to get through, feeling very proud of myself, everything that was thrown at me, which I wasn't expecting, I get in the car and I was out a battery. And I feel like right now, that's a little bit where we are at as a nation, as individuals, where we had something, we're minding our own business, we're going through life, something comes out of nowhere and hits us, like that something is like all of 2020 and COVID. And we adapt and we make it through and we do what we have to do to survive. And then we get to the end of the year and we're like, okay, we made it. We did it. We're maybe even proud of ourselves that we made it. And then we get back in our car of life to get going and we're like, it's done. The battery is done. I'm done. I've got nothing left. And then here we are. And I want you to know, if you are at that point, you are not alone. And as a counselor, we get kind of a front row view of the pulse of where people are at. And I can tell you, not only just me, but my other therapists, my practice, like there's just like this kind of blanket, like, ugh, like everybody is just kind of, oh my gosh, like tired and worn out. Everybody's battery is a little low. The beautiful thing though, is that just like in my car sitting on the side of the road in Minnesota, there was nothing wrong with the engine. There was nothing wrong with the general structure or the transmission. Okay, the tire had seen better days, but other than that, there was nothing wrong with the car. It just needed a jump start. It just needed a jump start to get going and to get back into life. And so that's what we're going to do today. And I believe that 2020 can be a really purposeful, meaningful, hope-filled year for you. So in this time we have together today, I'm going to cover 3 steps that are really foundational for us to get this jump start back into life. No matter how this year has treated you, no matter how, if you're feeling kind of that weight on you, if you're feeling tired, if you're feeling out of battery, I'm going to walk you through these 3 steps that are going to help jumpstart things. Okay? So for starters though, I'm going to give you a few stats just to let you know if you fall in any one of these categories, you're not alone. So right now, about 53% of the population, the adult population in the US, says that their mental health has been impacted by stress and worry. 47% of women and 34% of men right now say that they have depression or anxiety symptoms. 67% of parents are worried that their kids are falling behind in school academically or socially and are worried about their kids. And the stats on the burnouts and the thoughts of suicide are really through the roof. So in general, people are feeling isolated and lonely. And I think the incredible aspect of this year too is this has been such a polarized year that a lot of people have gone quiet. I mean, there are some people who are talking loud right now, but the vast majority of people have gone quiet, whether it's the polarization of politics or masks or whether or not to get together with friends and go to a restaurant or whatnot. So in general, there's just this feeling of being a little bit more quiet and a little bit more lonely. But I also want to pause and see if we could take a step back for a moment and just go, you know, wow, good for us. We made it through this last year. Good for us. Like, when in time have we ever had this many things? If you said back in January, like, hey, this is what you're going to face in this next year. Are you ready? Can you handle it? All of us would have been like, no, count me out, not doing it. I don't got it. I don't got it for that. And yet we did. Like, good for us. We made it. We're here, right? So let's just for grins, like COVID, a pandemic, okay? We had an economic downturn. Unemployment rates are through the roof. Racial injustice issues, the Black Lives Matters, politically polarized election. Most of us pivoting and working from home. Kids in and out of school. I know mine started started hybrid. Then they went in person. Then they're online, and now they're back in person. The quarantines, the lockdowns, the stuff that's happened at the Capitol over this last year. And that's not even including what's happened in your own personal life. So good for you. Good for you that you have made it. And no wonder our batteries are dead. No wonder our batteries are dead. So the other thing too that I think is interesting about all this is that there has been, in general, and this is certainly true for me, there's a sense where there's been a little bit of disconnection with ourselves, right? Because we've had to pivot, we've had to roll with the punches, we've had to be flexible, we've had to pick ourselves up by the bootstraps straps and keep going. And it just, there's been so much shifting, and we have had to be on our toes this whole time. And there's a part of us that really has kind of had to deny our emotions and just be like, well, that's just how it's going to go. We're just going to deal with it. We're just going to move. We're just going to keep on going, right? And I know for me, this became very clear to me over Christmas. So I tested positive for COVID right before Christmas. That was a little unfortunate. I was fine. Symptoms were mild, all that. Everybody's okay. But it gave me a little bit of extra time on my hands. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to sit down and journal, knowing that this webinar was coming up and I should do my own work ahead of time too, right? I was like, I'm going to sit down and like, how has COVID in the last year impacted me? And honestly, I sat down in the beginning, I was like, I don't think it really has impacted me too much, but I'll journal. 14 pages later, I was like, oh, no, it really has had deeper impact. Even this morning, I was talking with a friend and it hit home even deeper, kind of the impact of COVID in 2020. So it's important in step number one that we reflect on what the last year has done, has impacted you, okay? And it's going to be different for everybody, but that first step is for you. How has the last year and all that it's entailed, what has been the deeper impact on your life? Because otherwise you might be tempted to be like me of like, no, it's fine. It was, no, there was a deeper impact, right? And when we recognize and we acknowledge the effect that it's had on us, we can then start to deal with it, and it's more manageable. And I love this quote from Mr. Rogers. What a great man. This quote from Mr. Rogers. And he said that anything that is mentionable can be more manageable. When we talk about our feelings, they become less overwhelming, less upsetting, and less scary. So I love that phrase. What is mentionable is manageable. Okay, so that is the core of step number one, is that we need to recognize, we need to mention it, we need to bring this to our awareness, because then it is more manageable. You can start to shift, you can start to do things. So first we're going to recognize that impact, okay? And then it's also important to talk about it. Kind of like Mr. Rogers says, it's important to talk about it, but we're going to start with the first one of recognizing it. So I'm going to suggest that there are 8 core areas of life. I'm sure there's more or less, whatnot, but we're going to go with 8, okay? So I'm going to say these. Marie's also going to throw them in the chat if you want some visual, but there's family, work, emotional, spiritual, financial, social, physical, and personal, okay? So I want you to look at those. And what we're going to do is, this is a little bit different webinar in that I'm going to give you some guided reflection time too, okay? Because I want you to take the first step. The reflection time will not be, it will not give you all the time you need, but it's going to start. So what I'm going to do is, you're going to have 5 minutes. Marie's going to put a timer up. You're going to have 5 minutes. I want you to pick one of those core areas of life. Okay, family, work, emotional, spiritual, financial, social, physical, personal. I want you to pick one aspect of life. And I want you to take just a few minutes to start to jot down what is the deeper impact that COVID has had on that area of life in the last year. So Marie's going to put up the timer, and you're going to have 5 minutes, and then we'll come back. I'll see you then. Okay. Time is up. We're going to come back. I'm curious. I want to hear in the chat, what core aspect of life did you pick? Good. Family, social, emotional, relational, work, physical. Awesome. Good. Okay. And I want to hear, was this easy for you? Was it like, oh yeah, I knew this? Or did you start to hit on some other things? Or was this a challenge of like, gosh, that was, whew, to take a moment and to try to dig a little bit deeper? What was that experience like for you, those 5 minutes? When I'm hearing like, no, it was kind of hard. Yeah, okay, some deeper realizations. Yeah, digging deeper is difficult. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to encourage you. This could probably be, yeah, yeah, it was hard. Yeah, feeling it. Good, right. Not good that it was hard. But I want to encourage you, like this could probably be like an entire day. This could be like a day-long seminar or a summit or whatnot. So this is just a little bit of a taste to get you going. And I would encourage you to go back and to spend some time journaling through all these aspects, or maybe even journaling or writing it down or talking it down. Because again, this is where, when you mention it, it becomes more manageable, right? Now, the other thing that's important about this is first to recognize in and of yourself, but if we go with Mr. Rogers, talking about it is helpful. So I'm curious if you can think, is there one person that you can think of that you would say, this person would be safe to tell? This person would be safe to tell, and I'm committed to sharing part of this with them. Okay, if somebody comes to mind, I want you to write just a first name in the chat, or you can say my sister or whatever. But is there somebody that you can commit to of saying, okay, no, I'm going to risk a little bit and I'm going to share a bit with them. I'm going to help this become more manageable by talking about it. Yeah. I'm hearing friends, I'm hearing husbands, I'm hearing sister. Okay, good. Okay, be thinking about that. Okay, so that is step number one. Step number one is reflecting on the deeper impact that 2020 had on you. Okay. Step number two, for jumpstarting life, for reconnecting, for making this next year a really purposeful, meaningful, hopeful year, step two is that we're going to reconnect with ourselves. We're going to reconnect with our core. Because, like I said before, a lot of us, including myself, had gotten disconnected and we're living in survival mode. And we're like, all right, what's the next thing? Like, okay, bring it on. Bring it on. I got it. I can do this, right? And so taking a step and going, wait a second, we've been reacting so much, all of us, over the last year, that we need to take a minute and we need to go, okay, who am I? What is my core? What are my core values? Like, let me reconnect with who I am and what's important to me. Because it might take a moment to go like, oh my gosh, I don't even remember. Like, I don't even know. Like, it's been a while I've been reacting. So we're going to stop and we're going to take a minute. And what I want to do, first of all, just looking at why this is important. Okay, besides like, we need to connect or whatnot. But I love this, not analogy, but this rule of thumb in aviation. Okay, I grew up in aviation family, so this hits for me. But it says 1 degree. If a plane goes 1 degree off, okay, it's the 1 to 60 rule is what they call it apparently. So if a plane goes 1 degree off course, it will miss its destination by 1 mile for every 60 miles you fly. Okay, so just 1 little degree and you keep going down that route, you're going to end up way off from where you started wanting to go, right? So it's important that we reconnect with ourselves. It's important that we get centered and we get back to this place of like, okay, where's my core? What What are those deeper purposes and higher values that are going to guide me during this storm of what was last year and to recenter? Okay, so we're going to do the first step of this together. I'm going to help you with this. Okay, so we are going to do a value exercise. And Marie is going to, I'm going to share my screen. And Marie just put a PDF in the chat if you want to download it, if you want to have this. But otherwise, I'm going to share my screen so you can see what I'm talking about. So this is just a list that we put together of some values. Okay, acceptance, achievement, adventure, authority, caring, dependability, excitement, faith, leisure, health, honesty, safety, risk, simplicity, so on and so forth. Okay. So what I want you to do is, this is part of how we can reconnect with ourselves, because sometimes if we're like, well, I don't know, well, here we have some words. Okay. So what I want you to do is, I want you to go through this list, scan through them, and I want you to write down the top 10 that jump out at you that are most important. And when you get done with this, maybe put done in the chat so I know you're done. But pull up the top 10. Which one hits the deepest for you? All right, let's just take one more minute and finish up. Pick out those top 10. Okay. Now what I want you to do, we're going to up the ante. From that list of your top 10, narrow it down to your top 5. Okay. Now, once you get your top 5, you get 3. Narrow it down to your top 3. All right. And if you're willing, I want to hear in the chat, what were your top 3? What did it come down to out of the list of all of them that you connected with the most, saying, yep, when I pause, when I reconnect with myself and my deep core, these are the ones that I really resonated with. This is kind of the foundation for me moving forward. I love it. Family, spirituality, freedom, faith, friendships, hope, love. Good. Okay. Family, caring, acceptance. I love it. So I want you to make note of that and think back about that one person that you consider talking to. Maybe also sharing this with them. I'm going, this is now kind of the core, like clearing everything out of going, this is the core things that I want to make my decisions based off of. That I want to take, and as I pivot or as I look at this year, as I clear out everything else, all the craziness going around me, these are the things I connect with. And I want you to hold on to those. Maybe put them in a place, maybe write them on your mirror, put them on a sticky note, whatnot. Okay? So now, that was step 2. Step 1, we reflected on the impact that the last year has had. We started that, very short process, but we started that process. Step 2, we reconnected with ourselves. Step 3 is now we take those 2 and then we use that to reset for 2021. So I might butcher this name. You guys will have to forgive me. Deepak Chopra said that all great changes are preceded by chaos. So guys, we are set for great changes, right? Because there has been so much chaos. So we're like, we're good. We are set. We are primed for good change. So what we want to do is, these are not, when we talk about resetting, I'm not talking about goals. Okay? Goals are something different. Goals are great. Goals are great. I'm nothing against goals. But what I'm talking about is a course correction. Okay? It's seeing where we're at with life. To reset, it's really kind of, how do I course correct? And I think the best way I can articulate this is, one of my dear friends and I, before COVID hit, every year we'd go up to the mountains, at least once a year. And she also happens to be another therapist. And so we would go up to the mountains, and the whole point of that would be to take everything that we have, everything that we are, and to put it on the table, to take our hands off of it and say, okay, what is good? What is good but needs to go? What do we need to keep? What do we need to add? And it's this idea that we go, it's like we are in the river of life, is kind of the analogy I use. It's like we are in the river of life, and sometimes we don't even realize it. We don't know where the river's taking us. We don't know what's around the next bend. We are just kind of floating, and we're going with things, okay? And what we have to do is, every once in a while, is we have to crawl over to the bank or swim over to the bank, crawl out of that river, and we need to take some time to go, okay, if I pause for a second and regroup on life, is this even the river I want to be in? Like, am I in the right river to begin with? Or, yes, this is the river, but you know what? There's a lot of rapids in this river. So if I just like scoot over to this other side, it's going to be a little bit easier. You know, we can make course corrections at that time, but we have to step out of the river long enough to do that, okay? So for me, what that means when I would go up to the mountains with my friend is like, okay, for all I am, as a mom, as a business owner, as a counselor, as a friend, as a daughter, as all these things, like all my dreams, all my goals, all my hopes, like I'm gonna put them on the table. I'm gonna take a step back. I'm gonna spend some time processing with my friend and going, okay, what do I want to pick up and take back with me when I go down the mountain? What river am I going to get back into, right? So C.S. Lewis has this great quote I love. He says, you can't go back and change the beginning. You can't go back and change what river you've been flowing down or what happened last year. But you can start where you are, and you can change the ending. You get to pick what river you want to be in. Okay? So I want you to spend some time. And again, we're going to go back into a reflection time. I want you to spend some time thinking in this little bit, in this little taste of digging a little bit deeper. Is there anything that comes to mind that you know you want to do some course correction on? Is there any aspect of life? Or is there anything you're like, you know what, I really neglected myself over the last year, and I need to course correct on that, because that is part of one of my core values. So I need to course correct. Okay. So Marie's going to put up a couple questions in the chat. So the first one is just, is there any aspect of life? The second one, if you have time, is why is this important to you? Why is it important to change this aspect of life? Why is it important to course correct? And then the third one is, if you don't, what is the cost? What is the cost to you if you choose not to course correct in this area? Okay, so I'm going to put, Marie, let's put 7 minutes on the clock, and you have some time to do some reflection, and I'll see you back in a few minutes. All right. Come on back, finish your thoughts. Okay. Good work, guys. All right, I would love to hear. Okay. What area did you pick course correct? Or you can answer, why is it important to you? What did you decide that you're like, yeah, maybe I should put a little thought into this. Maybe there's some shifts that maybe I want to do in this aspect of life. If you're willing to share, put in the chat. Yeah, faith not growing in isolation, re-engaging with friendships and relationships, rethinking where we live, talking about a particular responsibility. Does it go along with core values? It's good stuff, guys. Good stuff. Okay. I love it. So I want to give you a few hints that will help propel your course correction forward. Okay. First of all, write it down, which you've already done. Like, check. You guys have already done step 1. Awesome. Okay, step 2, and this is going back through all of the ones we did before. Tell someone about it. Okay. Tell someone. Not only does it help with that whole research and goal setting and all that kind of stuff, but even more than that, our hearts long to be known and long to be understood and to be heard. That's really important. And what you're feeling and what you're thinking through is valid and gets to be honored and gets to take up space. So I would encourage you to let yourself be heard and known in that. So that's hint number 2. Okay. Hint number 3, something that is helpful with course corrections, not all the time. So you're going to have to figure out if this kind of applies to you. But sometimes it's helpful when you start with the end in mind. I'm sure you guys have heard that saying before. But if you start with the end in mind of, okay, well, gosh, I want to be more intentional with my commitments, let's say. Okay, so what would, if that's successful, what would the end of that be? Well, that means that I would only be out of the house 2 nights a week. Okay, so if you start with that, then you can backtrack. Not sure if that's the best example, but it kind of gives you an idea. So start with, if you are successful, what do you want that to look like? That's the end goal. And then backtrack of what am I going to have to do to make that possible? Okay. And then the 4th hint that I'll give you is just take 1 step. And I would say make it an easy step. Okay. What is the next easy step that's just going to get you going? You don't have to do all of them. You don't even know how you can achieve all of them. You don't need to know all that. Okay. All you need to know, and this can be helpful if the end goal is too much, it's just, okay, pick the next 1 step and just do that. Okay. And then once you do that, okay, what's the next 1 step? Then do that. Okay. It can be a gentle process if we make it that way. Okay. So you might be saying, hey, Tammy, this is great, but it's a lot. Okay. I just gave you the 3 steps, which are it's just 3 steps, but they're really big in it, right? Reflecting on the whole year for all those core aspects of life, reconnecting with your values and who you are, and then course correcting, resetting for 2021. But you can do this, and you have these tools. Now you just take these tools and you just flesh them out. Or you can say, I don't want to do this on my own. I would like somebody to help. Can you guys help us? Yes, absolutely. If you want somebody to help you walk through these, just let us know. You can email us at hello@livefreecounseling.com. We're here if that's helpful, but you have all the tools. Okay? So when we left my 16-year-old self in that car in Minnesota, I want to retrace back to her, but I also want to let you know we're going to have a few minutes for question and answer at the end. So if you have any questions, be thinking about that now. Okay, and we'll do that. But we don't want to leave my 16-year-old self on the side of the road. So there she is, freezing, 20 below, and the car is dead. The car is dead. The car is fine, but the battery is dead. This is going to age me. This was before cell phones. That's crazy. Oh my gosh, I think about that. So fortunately, someone finally took pity on me and pulled over to help me. Unfortunately, neither one of us had jumper cables. It's a very sad thing. So we had to get a little bit more creative, and we had to take a little bit more time and a little bit more help to get my car up and going so I could drive home and get out of the cold. So what we did, that my hope and my plan of that like really quick fix and like I'm just going to do this one thing and jump on it, everything's going to be great. Unfortunately, that didn't work, but we got more creative. And what we did is instead of a jump start, we did something called a bump start. I don't know if you guys ever heard about that. I had not. Okay. But for a bump start, instead of the cables that jump starts it, for a bump start, what you do is you put it in second gear at a manual car, you put it in second gear, and then once you get the car going and there's enough momentum, you let your foot off the clutch and that bump starts the car. That's as much as I know. I still to this day don't understand how it works, but that's the gist of it, right? So what we had to do is he actually had to come up behind me and go bumper to bumper with me. And then he started pushing my car with his along the shoulder of the highway, along the side of the road, and picking up speed. And then eventually, once there was enough speed, I let my foot off the clutch and the car jumped back to life. And I feel like we are all a little bit in that space right now. Like the quick fixes aren't going to help, right? The easy fixes aren't going to help. And we might need to get a little bit of momentum going. We might need help getting a little bit of momentum going. And then we can bump start the car and then we can get going. But again, everything's good. We just need that first spark. So I drove home a little bit slower that day. I had to pick a different route, one that the spare tire was not going to pop on the gravel roads. I had to give it time for my battery to really fully recuperate, but I made it. I made it. My battery did pick up speed. We got everything shifted and we went on with life and I was rolling again. And I want to encourage you that you can get rolling again too. If you are feeling low, or if you're feeling kind of the weight, you can get going again. Okay, your engine is good, the body is good, we're rolling. We just need to get these 3 steps to get moving again, and then we'll go on. And 2020 can be a year of purpose, of hope, of direction for you. So I want to give a couple minutes and just do a few, see if anyone has any questions. We've done, I've thrown a lot of ideas and a lot of content at you. So I'd love to hear a few. So I see one from earlier was, do values ever change? Yes, absolutely. Totally, they can change. So it might not be a bad idea on a regular basis to kind of reconnect with yourself, especially if there's big things that have happened in life. Your values can definitely change, can be fluid. So another question is shaming yourself when looking at values. So I think that's I'm really glad that this topic came up, because I think right now there's actually a lot of feelings of shame and guilt. Whether it's around COVID, whether it's around putting your kids in front of the screen too much, whether it's not connecting enough with family, whether it's, the fact that you've got COVID. I felt some shame when I got COVID, So that issue of shaming yourself when you're looking at values, if you want to put a little bit more description in the chat about what exactly you mean, that'd be great. But what I would say is that the what I'm hearing and what I'm interpreting from that, so you'll have to tell me if I'm wrong, is going, gosh, maybe I'm not living up to my values. Maybe right now what my values are and where I'm at, I'm not quite there. I'm not quite in alignment yet. Okay, that's okay. This is a season to be very gentle with yourself. And this is a season where that course correction really comes into play. Of, you know what, if these are your values, but gosh, this year has just wiped it out or has gotten sidetracked. And it might not even be the year with COVID. Maybe it's something personally or in your life or with your kids or with your marriage that happened. That's okay. Those values you can still hold on to. You just make some course corrections to come back. But be very gentle with yourself right now. Another question is when others shame you for sharing your values. Oh, that's a great question. I would say for that, you get to choose who you share with. And just like I said, how we are designed for intimacy, for that emotional connection to be known, there are some people who don't get to have our hearts because they aren't safe. And for that, I would say be intentional with who you share your heart with. Your heart is worth protecting. So if there is somebody in your life that you're like, I can't go there. Okay, don't. Pick somebody else who is safe. Okay, another clarification of feeling guilty. Oh yeah, feeling guilty that faith isn't in my top 5. Okay, so saying like, hey, this used to be a core value and maybe deep down inside it still is, but right now it's not a top 5. That is okay. It's okay. Because those values do change. And because there are things in our lives that will impact our values, and sometimes they kind of take a hiatus, they need to come back, and that's okay. And that's okay. So, any other questions before we wrap up? Okay. So I would encourage you, take some time, even if it's a little hard. Sometimes this is a little hard to sit down and do. It took me COVID to sit down and really dive into all this, but take some time and flesh this out. And if you guys want any help or encouragement, we are here. And also you will get a copy of this replay. So if you want to go back and you didn't quite miss anything, I'll be sending out the replay in the next day or two. So thank you so much, everyone. I loved spending this time with you and seeing your faces. So take care. Bye.